Hi, Trina.
Hi, how are you? I wasn't sure if I was getting connected. I was having trouble on my laptop, so I went to my iPad.
Oh gosh, it never fails, right?
Yeah.
Emery.
There we go.
Hello, how are you?
Good, you?
Good. Long time no see.
I know. Happy New Year.
I see your glasses.
Yeah, yeah, your mouth is low.
Am I? Wait,
The bottom of your face was cut off.
I'll do this. Hold on.
There you go.
There's hope on the way. I got to get a pillow to get up higher. Hold on. Ugh.
I think we're all having these technical issues here.
Ugh. Hi, Tina. Pleased to meet you. We good?
You as well. I am
Hi,
good.
Rob.
Technical problems on my
Hello,
end, but
Carolyn.
I think I got them resolved.
How are you, Carolyn? It's been a while since we
Good to
We
see
met.
you, Rob. Same, Bonnie.
Hey, everybody.
How you doing?
Good to see everybody.
I know it's been a long time.
I know. It has been.
Okay.
Welcome, Trina.
Oh, there we go.
Who are we missing?
We're missing Larry Sharp, but he is taking his wife to get her vaccination.
Oh, okay.
Is far more not to in any way denigrate the work of this committee, but you know, if you,
Yeah, right.
you can get a
You can get-
vaccination, go for it.
You ain't been.
Trina, you'll probably get one in
and
about
Nancy,
2025. It's the problem with youth.
we're also missing Powell, I think.
I'm sorry, Rob, you broke up.
We're also missing NC Powell, I think.
I know she's coming.
Oh, okay.
And is Chief Spell joining us?
I'm pretty sure. Hold on, let me look. He could be here. He's not here yet, but he planned to.
Sorry, it's got 4 minutes. So
Guess
did
I better
anybody-
turn off the game.
what game?
I was watching Maryland.
Who's winning?
I'll tell you in a minute. They were winning. I'll see what the score is. 50-30 Maryland.
Over.
Women over Michigan State.
Is
We have
Michigan,
another Bonnie.
Where?
Do you see
I'm
that?
using Bonnie's login.
Hi, Nance.
I somehow screwed up in transferring it and it didn't save. So Bonnie saved me.
God forbid you should have do Bonnies.
So,
I wouldn't
Janine,
wish that on anybody.
you should be able to hover over Nancy, and at the top right corner, you'll see dots or something, and you'll get a menu and you can rename her.
Anybody you've ever wanted to be, Nancy? Kathy Hepburn? You know,
Now's your chance.
I think it just changed.
Yeah, it did.
at least on my screen.
There, and I just put mine on gallery.
Yeah, me too.
I think it was on, I was watching one where there was Rob, it might have been your beach committee where there was a screen share for a long time and I think it kicked it out of gallery into tiles or some other format. Did anybody brave that wind today?
Yes, indeed.
Oh, because you had to walk the dog.
Yes, Lord. It was called a short walk.
And I did the
Sit
grocery
up.
store and CVS, so, and the garbage.
Speaking of dog, she just walked in. Hi, Bubba.
So I will pass along something that I learned today. I had to go get blood work for, my annual physical. And I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm not really too good in the morning without a cup of coffee. In fact, it's not pretty at all. And the phlebotomist, I think that's the right term for the person who does your blood, told me that they've just changed the guidance. And even though you're fasting, you can now have black coffee.
Yay!
It's really key with that.
I need my creamer. I can't.
I don't care. As long as it has caffeine in it,
I learned to drink coffee in the teacher's lounge, and the milk, you never knew how long it might have been there. So it was
Oh,
really
God.
important to learn to drink it black.
What's
Well,
up? Bub?
that was like that made my day. So
Can't come to you right now. I'm busy. Okay. Okay, I'm busy. I
okay,
can't
there's
talk.
Tom.
Okay, bye-bye.
Out of the picture.
Okay, is everybody ready?
Yeah.
Okay, it's 5:00 on Thursday, January 28th. Just want to say it's great to see everybody. And Trina, welcome to the committee. We're looking forward to your energy and input and your very, very clear organizational skills. So I sent around the final, at that point, report of the committee. So everybody would have I took that right off of the agenda that went to council. So I was sure I had the right version as opposed to, version confusion. So that is the last document. We're a little limited in time tonight because there is a 6:00 city council meeting on wayfaring signage. If anybody wants to do a double decker, you can stay or tune into that one. So what I'd like to do is sort of go for as long as we think we should, but definitely no later than 5:55, because I definitely will need a break between, and I think I can speak for, well, I don't want to speak for Rob, but I think I can speak for Anne Marie that, a break between meetings is a welcome thing. So let me just sort of remind everybody of where we are. Rob, do you want to do this or do you want me to? Because you're the co-chair.
No, Bonnie, why don't you take the lead on this?
Okay. Where we are is the committee started meeting in 2019, and our charge, as you know from rereading the police report, was basically to let me quote it because that's much better than me trying to do it from memory. Our charge was to examine the Lewis Police Department's operations for programmatic priorities and potential efficiencies. And this review of the police department is consistent with council's periodic reviews of a number of functions within the city and consultants to the city. So this was just one piece of that puzzle, and it's obviously particularly important given the critical contributions that the police department makes to our everyday well-being. And also, I mean, since we start budget hearings next week, also because the police department is a large part of what we spend tax dollars on. So it's, it's important to do a periodic review and see where things are. We heard we had a lot of information from Chief Spell and Lieutenant Azada, which was very, very helpful. We reviewed a number of documents, as you'll recall. And we came up with a report that was kind of a snapshot of the police department at that point and a list of recommendations. And that we discussed it and it voted on it. And that was what went up to council. Council didn't reach the recommendations because unfortunately due to COVID and a bunch which put sand in the gears of everything. The police report was really a little out of date even by the time we got it to council. So,
I see.
Yeah, so they said, you know what, we like what you're doing. We're going to extend the ad hoc committee and we want you to go back and take another look at it. So one thing I'd like to do is sort of to get us oriented. Anybody have any questions so far? There's nothing in the chat. So what I was going to suggest is to ask Anne Marie and Tom Spell to sort of let us know whether, independent of the council's consideration, there have been steps towards any of the recommendations in here, and particularly things like the consolidation and transfer of administrative work. And that's, I think, particularly timely to start with, because since the committee was working on this, the city has actually hired on the civilian side an employee who is tasked with HR, which we have never had before. So that is an important plus up in our expertise, and obviously that's for the civilian side and for the uniform side.
Bonnie, is that as a result of the report that we did? And we mentioned in our report that we, thought it was a good idea to consolidate that. Did that happen because of that?
I think it was a happy coincidence.
Oh, okay.
There have been those of us, I'll raise my hand, who have been saying for a very long time that, and I'm not alone, I don't want to suggest that, but that we didn't have anyone in the city administrative side to handle HR. So it really fell, it's a very important function, and it really fell to Anne Marie and Ellen Lorraine to fit it in amid their many other responsibilities. And so the proposal came to council. I'm sure this was on their minds as well, to to augment the administrative staff with someone with HR background, and that's what has happened. So
you establish an HR position for this person?
This is where I punt over to Anne Marie to describe the work duties, but
So
before I do that real quick, the other ones that I wanted to see where we are were on number 2, which is the administrative stuff. Number 1, which is, who's going to deal with the lifeguards and maybe the meter folks. Number 7, which is working towards an ordinance on the bike path, and number 9 about staffing. Those were the ones that really came to my mind that we should sort of kick around now, because they're either the most important or the most time critical. So, but that's just me. I just thought I'd set the table. That's not meant to be exclusive. That's just my particular focus. So, having just interrupted you, Anne Marie,
That's fine.
I think it was great. I mean, what you just said, given how we felt about various things out there, and we basically knew and thought that HR was going to be a important position for just not in one area, but on a whole for all the different administrators. So I'm elated that you did it. I really am.
So what we did is we added an accounts payable position. And when we interviewed candidates at our accounts payable and payroll have been combined, and payroll obviously has some HR function to it.
Mhm.
When we interviewed, we had two very strong candidates with different sets of skills. And one of the candidates had a strong accounting background. The other candidate had an HR degree and some background in HR. And we believed that both would be assets. So we were interviewing for a payroll AP person, but we had another vacant position in the finance department that we hadn't quite determined what jobs were going to be assigned. We were going to wait till we got through this hire.
Mhm.
And since we had somebody with a very strong financial accounting background and somebody with a very strong HR background, we hired them both and
Oh,
wrote the positions to then break out those things. The place where there's overlap is we have them both trained in payroll, and they're both doing payroll responsibilities with each payroll cycle so that
So
we
the
have
positions are
redundancy.
interchangeable?
Right. So, because when we only have one person in payroll, if
Mhm.
somebody is out sick or something, Ellen Lorraine has to kind of drop what she's doing and do payroll, and it's pretty time consuming. So what we've done is we
Yeah,
have them both
cross-training.
cross-trained for payroll.
Yeah,
Mhm.
just what I
And-
would say, cross-training is always a good idea.
Right.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
And then one focuses on AP and the other focuses on HR. And she's got, I can't remember if her master's degree is in HR, but I mean, she's definitely got a very strong background, and we have,
Where'd she come from?
we recruited her away from a car dealership. She was doing like the FMLA and
Mhm.
that kind of stuff there. So, and we've connected her in with the municipal HR folks. So she now has a network of people that she can draw on. And, honestly, the timing has turned out to be really good because we have our new HR manual that's gone into effect. We've had a bunch of quarantines and COVID cases, and there's federal laws about how you deal with that stuff.
You have a specific person now that can address that. for everyone.
Exactly, because
That's really
before
good.
it was Ellen Lorraine, or I
Mhm.
had to kind of drop what we were doing
Mhm.
and address
Mhm.
it. So she's been, making sure that our HR files are, that they're maintained as they should be. She's been like doing an audit of the files to make sure that we have the documentation that's required in there. So it's actually turned out to be, I think a very good, a very good decision to bring that on. I don't want to dismiss this committee's role in that because, it's been talked about at council, but I think that the fact that you had a committee also that said, well, this is an important function, we're big enough that we need somebody to do it, I think helped.
And these updates to the manual and other things apply to the police as well.
They do, except for where the collective bargaining agreement has a different, if there's a conflict between that and the collective bargaining agreement, the collective bargaining agreement rules.
And those would be obvious to someone looking at it.
It's things like benefits, vacation accrual, holiday pay. I'm trying to think. Those are the main things. Overtime.
Yeah, I mean, the collective bargaining agreement has, it has, it's captioned and it's pretty tightly written.
There's not a lot of wiggle room in there.
Yeah,
Mhm.
just because, sorry, the cat always comes to join these There's nothing I can do about it. If I knock him on the ground, he'll just get back up. So I don't think well, that's a good question. Emery and Tom, was there, I don't recall any discussion at the council level when we talked about the changes to the personnel manual. I don't recall any concerns being raised about there being a ambiguity between the collective bargaining agreement and the manual. Are you all, has any?
I mean, I think it's apparent to the employees which, you know, which things go, or, you know, which elements of the manual are not applicable. Now, they are applicable to the chief and the lieutenant because they're not part of the union.
Right.
So.
That's right.
Rob, I think you tried to jump in there.
That
Beg your pardon?
That's where I think the law enforcement officer's Bill of Rights overrides the HR manual
On
as far
discipline.
as police go.
Yeah, on disciplinary issues.
Right.
Yeah.
This is exactly what I wanted
Right.
to point to. I think we need, my own opinion is that needs to be spelled out so that everybody in the city understands that there is a difference and what the difference is.
I agree with Emery. I think it's clear in the, to the employees and clear in the manual.
But what about to the public?
Oh, yeah, can't answer that.
Okay, that's a good, Nancy, hang on to that thought because we should talk about what the best way is to get a lot of this before the public. And I think that's so hold that thought. So with that sort of update about overall, I mean, I don't know if anyone's
Okay,
following this, but
the other thing I would add is facilities management. When we, you know, repurposed a position in the maintenance department to create somebody to oversee facilities management. There's been a more active role there with the police facilities as well. Now, obviously, the police are involved because they're the ones that can tell you that the sump pump has again overflowed. But, you know, they haven't had to deal with, you know, when the contractors come in and try to fix things. So that's being managed through our maintenance department.
so to some extent, it sounds like just through the evolution of city staffing, some of the uniformed officers have been relieved of some of these administrative tasks, which is a good thing since they're trained to be police officers, not, you know, maintenance.
The one thing I would say in terms of HR that regardless always stays within the department because of the law enforcement officer's Bill of Rights is the disciplinary process.
So with that in mind, I mean,
What other admin,
go ahead.
I was just going to ask Anne Marie to follow on the point you were making, Bonnie. What other administrative roles have been moved, or are you thinking of moving into the central staff?
Those are the two that I can think of. Chief, do you have any others that you can think of?
No, I mean, I think those are the two primary.
Just going back to the recommendation, it was city manager should explore the consolidation of LPD administrative support, human resources. Sounds like we're on our way on that one. Facilities management, sounds like we're on our way on that one. That's good. Procurement, technology support, et cetera. I mean, two big things that we talked about were procurement, that didn't make sense for all of the purchases to be in parallel.
Right.
There's some things that are police specific that,
Right.
that the police are going to understand a lot better than, bullets. I mean, just as an example, than,
Right.
than,
The things that are very police specific, ammunition, uniforms, vests, those types of things, that's all still within the police department. Office supplies, we have a lease, we need to, our copier leases have expired, so we'll be, doing new copier leases. All of that will be handled through the finance department.
okay, that's great. And then the big one that, is always so problematic because it's so expensive, and particularly with cyber hacks, it's becoming more front and center. I mean, Rob's been pointing that out for a long time correctly, is the technology end of things.
We've been
Right,
sharing
so-
that for a couple of years now,
Right.
as far as the, repair. Some of the installation of the police side is done by, those companies that provide the service.
Right, but remember there was the whole discussion. I mean, I remember when I did the tour of the space, there was one server over there. There was a monitoring function that we talked about how it was burdensome at times for the police to be responsible for those.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
have used him for some of that.
Right, and we talked about whether it made sense to consolidate that. I always understanding that there's the practical problem of people coming in and out of the police space.
Well, so our IT consultant is able to go in and out of the space. He's got the background check and everything. It's just that we have him on a very limited basis. So if there's an issue with, for instance, the WatchGuard server that has all of the dash cam footage, if it's something that needs to be addressed quickly, because our person is off site and comes every couple of weeks, there's still going to be a role.
How about other administrative things that it's talked about in the body of the report? There's a long footnote about what Chief Spell had suggested stay within the police.
Right.
I mean, are you all, let me, I guess, ask the question this way. Are you, Anne Marie, and you, Tom, satisfied that you're working through those issues so that the committee doesn't need to spend any more time on it, or not?
I think so. I mean, I think we're working probably closer than we have just, interacting on a regular basis. And so I'm comfortable that we are. Do you agree, Chief?
Yeah, I would definitely concur with that. We're definitely moving in that right direction for sure. There's still some admin functions, hiring, training, discipline that, I or the supervisors here are intimately involved in, but that's pretty normal. I think as the HR person gets more on board and more comfortable, she'll definitely be included much more in that aspect. So I think we're definitely moving in the right direction.
Okay, that's great news. Good committee. I would say we did our thing.
I'll say. Good.
Do you want me to talk about lifeguards and parking?
Please.
So we have not done anything official for two reasons. One, the recommendations weren't officially accepted, adopted, whatever you want to call it. So we weren't sure, how council wanted to proceed. However, we do have, as you mentioned earlier, the budget process starting next week. I have talked to Janet Reeves, who runs, who's our new Parks and Marina Administrator, about taking responsibility for the lifeguards. She is open to that. So while we have not made that shift. I think we are prepared to make that recommendation to the council
Good,
as part of the budget process.
Right.
As it relates to parking, it struck me that there was less consensus on how to proceed with that. We are changing in the budget, we have created the parking enforcement officer as a full-time position year-round, because what we're finding is there's more and more responsibilities that extend beyond just the parking season.
but that's still gonna come out of you're not gonna leave it with Tom, right? The
Well,
parking.
and I think that's another discussion we'll have during the budget process, whether, especially if you have a full-time person overseeing that, do you want to move it out or do you want to keep it in? So I
So
think
what do you
that's going
have-
to
What do
be,
you have, what's your feelings on it? I mean, Tom, I think when we, in one of the meetings, Tom wasn't really interested in keeping that particular position, if I can recall, Tom, I don't remember. So
Yeah,
my
so-
question to you is that would be, what's applicable? What's a good place for this position?
I would say, truth be told, we work an awful lot together on it.
Mhm.
Certainly the planning process, especially when we convert it over to the new system, the purchasing process. Anne Marie and I work pretty closely with the parking enforcement officer.
Mhm.
Maybe she'll say that the enforcement side and the fielding of those issues in the heat of the moment might be more appropriate for the police department, kind of matching up
okay.
with our, I'm not saying that's where it'll end up, but I mean, that's kind of where I'm thinking at this point, but certainly worth ongoing and continuing dialogue.
I remember you talking about how much time you spent dealing with, making everyone happy with tickets during the peak season. So I was thinking that, given that and how much time it was taking of yours, that'd be
Yeah,
great to move it somewhere else.
angry ticketers sometimes
Right,
aren't fun for, Anne Marie's staff to deal with. We're a little better equipped.
right. So it's back in your ballpark, Anne Marie.
yeah, so it's gonna, I mean, I anticipate that we'll get discussion at the budget among council about
Yeah,
where
so-
that should.
Is the proposal to make the supervisor a full-time employee and continue the officers as seasonal?
Yes, to have one full-time. One, there's revenue collection, there's, like ticket collection that happens in the off season. There's dealing with the equipment, closing down everything, starting up everything. But the other thing that we've identified is, people have caught on to the fact that parking enforcement stops when the meter season stops. And it's been a real, especially in this challenging year for merchants, it's been a real problem where people have parked downtown all day long and customers can't find parking. So what we did for this season is we've brought in on a very limited hour basis some of the parking enforcement staff to do some randomized ticketing.
Mhm.
And we've seen a change in the behavior, but with a one year-round person, we can say, go out to Front Street and Second Street, they're doing it again, and you have more of that flexibility to do that. So we're finding, especially because of the technology associated with the equipment, it's just become more of a year-round responsibility, even when the meters aren't operational.
Anne Marie, do you think that all day parking is just people parking and maybe catching the bus to go to the outlets, or just
Oh, no, it's
shopping around?
employees. It's downtown
It's
employees.
Ask that. I'll ask that. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the good news is for the downtown merchants that that there's there's enough people going downtown to patronize them that we even have a parking problem in the off season. I mean, because the problem with the employees parking down there is been going on as long as I've been on council, and I'm sure long before that. But going back to Nancy's point, that's another thing that it would be great if we could get out into the community that, you know, the 3-hour limit matters all year round.
It has been. I mean, Emery did involve the chamber and sent out emails through the chamber to all their members to make sure that they remind their employees. The first 3 days, Emery, or maybe 2 days, issued, I think it was 21 tickets. And of course, I don't know the stats as we sit here, but I'm sure it's declined significantly once they got that message. We just got a late start on it this year.
Right. And everybody who called to complain that they got a ticket worked at a business downtown. They either worked in a restaurant or somewhere else.
Yeah, this is, I mean, honestly, this has been a problem. The problem of the employees, the problem of the merchants complaining that there's parking problem and the employees taking up the parking that would otherwise be available to customers has been going on
Yes.
forever. So I'm glad to hear that. I mean, it sounds like it's useful. So I guess the sounds like the lifeguards are going to go over to Janet, and the meter patrol is going to stay with Tom.
That very well could happen, but it'll be up to council too.
Yeah, of course, right. But that sounds like that's going to be your recommendation, and we always do what you recommend. So.
And can you help me? Who's Janet and what's her role?
Oh, I'm sorry. Janet is the Parks and Marina Administrator. Allison Kirk used to have that position. So you probably remember Allison.
I do.
Okay.
And Allison went over to facilities.
Yep.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
Hey, Trina, one thing I'd really recommend is if you have time is to get in touch with Tom and do a tour of the police department, because
he's already contacted me and did do that tour already. Yes.
Fantastic. So I think I strongly suspect that in the budget proceedings, we will hear about renovations in the police department, which are unquestionably needed. And we were going down that track, and then COVID hit, and nobody knew what the economics were going to be. So we said, that was just one of the many acquisitions and initiatives that got sort of put on ice until we figured out where we were going to end up.
And if it runs into trouble, this committee ought to be thinking about how it includes a new recommendation to support that. I think Carolyn and I were both a little shocked at the conditions that you're working under.
Here. Can I?
So the two staff people, are they physically located in City Hall or at the police station?
The parking enforcement supervisor.
No, I
is
mean
located.
The payroll and the administrative.
Oh, they're in City Hall. They're in
Okay.
City Hall.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Well, it's been so long since we met, but at that time you were down one employee, Tom, and then I heard another employee. Have those positions been filled?
In the process now, actually, that's kind of been my existence for the last 2 to 3 weeks is the hiring process. We're currently in the background investigation phase to fill those. And
how about I understand that the dog passed away. I'm sorry to hear that, but is that still, that K9 still a position or?
That's on hold right now.
Yeah, okay.
Chief Spell, can you see any difference as you do the background checks, say than before George Floyd and some of the reforms from last summer, in terms of being able to spot where people have had disciplinary problems, or has there been any change that you can identify?
So of the current, we're in the middle of 5 background checks right now. You know, that's obviously one of the tougher phases to get through. We have one previous police officer who was a police officer in Maryland. And obviously we're going to vet that background very closely. We have all his records, all his training. They sign liability waivers so we can get information, and we'll look at that. So we're doing that. I would say that the application pool or the number of people that actually apply is significantly down. Not unique to Lewis Police Department, though, to the profession as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Chief, may I ask a question in that process? And I don't know if this is appropriate to ask, but I'm going to ask it and somebody can tell me if it's not. But during that vetting process, is social media and extremism also looked at for your hiring?
Absolutely.
Good.
Chief, could you just, I'm sorry, Rob, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Bonnie, but I'll come after you.
Okay, all I was going to say is Chief, could you sort of just briefly explain to the members of the committee how hiring works in terms of a certified officer, Delaware certified officer versus someone who isn't, and how the academy works in, and how that, if someone is not certified in Delaware and they have to go to the academy, the delays that in terms of having that person on the street while they're getting appropriate training?
Sure, I can try to give the abridged version, I guess, since we're on a timeline. So often in Delaware Council on Police Training is the council that's in charge of all police certifications. It's been that way for probably 20 years now in Delaware. We're way ahead of that curve nationally. The council dictates who the certification process. For totally new police officer, off the street, just out of college or whatever, would go through all the hiring steps and then go to Delaware State Police Academy, where they'd have to meet the standards and become certified by the Council on Police Training at the conclusion of about a 5-month academy. Hundreds of hours of training. We have pre-certified Delaware police officers who perhaps worked at a different agency and or just looking for a different environment or whatever reason. Those would already maintain a certification by the council. That's obviously we follow a variety of hiring steps to include a background check and all the medical and psychological requirements. But it's much shorter, a little more economical. Sometimes it's a month-long process where you can plug them right in, and it's actually pretty nice as long as you find the person that is pre-certified that is the right fit for the agency. Obviously we review previous discipline from other police departments. We scrutinize that very closely. And then you have out-of-state certified police officers where, I don't know, just New Jersey, somebody's a police officer and moves to Delaware and wants to continue on with their police career. That's a little more difficult to vet. You have to get training records. You got to see how those training records match up with the Delaware requirements. For example, Patrolman Casey Craps, PFC Casey Craps, came from Charlotte, North Carolina Police Department. We reviewed all his records, sent him to the Council on Police Training. They looked at him and they said, okay, good, but he needs X, Y, and Z training. And it turned out to be about 200 hours of additional training, plus some specific Delaware courses like active shooter training that we had to meet internally. We did that internally through certified instructors, and the council granted him certification.
Is there a certain period of time in which all that is to take place before that person is really officially an employee?
For Casey, I think it took probably 2.5, 3 months, maybe even a little bit longer. But, the timing of the Delaware State Police Academy or any academy we could send somebody to doesn't always fall within that timeline. So you might have 3, 4, 5 months before the next academy starts. Then they got to go through the academy, then they have to become certified at the end of that. So
But you hire them before they finish the training or go to training?
yes,
I see.
Even for the academy,
that's
they
the
have a,
understanding that they have to meet the criteria or they're no longer employed.
I see.
but even when they go to the academy, they're employed
Mhm.
they're paid at a lower rate because they're not certified yet.
Mhm.
But they're still,
An employee.
they're still an employee.
Okay, okay, I see how.
Not a sworn employee at that point.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
Did
thank you.
that do it justice, Bonnie?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I think the next class is at the, if we were to hire someone who had to go through the whole process, I think the next class starts in what, April?
Yep, first or second week of April.
And how long does it last if you have to go through the whole Megillah?
About 5 months.
Yeah, so you can see where if we hired someone tomorrow who
Mhm.
needed to go through the whole thing, you're unlikely to see that person actually patrolling full-time on their own, I guess, before, late fall, early winter.
It's close to a year
Oh,
because
no kidding.
after the academy, they've got their field training. So then they're paired with another officer and they're, kind of,
Yeah, and I like to say
And this is
almost-
the norm, this is the norm for bringing in an officer from another state?
no, this is brand new officer.
No, this is someone who
But
has
I'm,
to go through the whole.
no, not necessarily a brand new officer, but I mean in terms of coming from another state.
So the time is shortened, but it's still pretty significant. It's not just a plug and play type
I
deal. You know,
never
it still
knew that.
takes
I
time.
didn't realize they had to go through that kind of training when they came into.
Well, I mean,
That's another way to look at it, though, that you're getting someone who's got recent training, is using current methods and understands current issues. I
Mhm.
don't think that's all bad, even though that's very
Amen.
time consuming.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh,
But
no, it's not
the
bad at all.
laws of the other state may be different. The laws and policies and procedures or what have you may be different from one state to the next.
Well, that's a great example. One of the things that an out-of-state police officer would have to be trained on Delaware traffic and criminal laws for sure. That's top of my head, I want to say 120 hours, but don't quote me on that. But it's a significant investment. That and departmental policies and procedures is another big time.
Mhm.
so Rob, I think you had a question before I asked the chief to kind of acquaint the committee with the process.
I did, thanks. I wanted to follow up on something the chief said, and something that Trina asked. In the background check, chief, I think you referred to getting a liability waiver so you could get certain background information. Could you explain that?
Yeah, just that they're applying for a job, so they have to give us access to those materials from previous employers. Which, if tomorrow somebody called me to check on one of our employees, I would need that waiver that was signed by that employee or past employee.
And is that
Need that on
that
the
apply
schools,
to,
too.
does that apply to previous employment with a different police department?
Absolutely.
Wow.
And the other thing I wanted to follow up on was Trina's question about checking social media, which is a very current concern.
Mhm.
How do you do that? Do you hire an expert to do that?
No, we do that. Our background investigators in-house do that currently.
Okay. Because there are specialists in that.
Oh, absolutely, sure. The background information packet, which the committee got last year, I'm not sure the page. Of course, it's I don't know, 100 pages long. They list all their social networks and their sign-on names.
Wow.
So if somebody would go and delete their account, would you still be able to access their past history?
Yeah, of course, you're talking to a 55-year-old who's not very active on social media. Yeah, I don't know that answer, Trina. to be honest. I think we can certainly view all the active stuff and,
They're going through the normal channels. They're not going through
correct,
Facebook to get like cached files or anything like that, right?
right.
Yeah.
Keep
We
in
also,
mind, keep in mind, we have a variety of reference checks, that kind of go along with that. So that we're not doing it in a vacuum.
right, we also have a question from Andrew Williams in the chat, which is whether these applicants volunteer their social media handles.
Yes,
Oh, good.
not volunteer.
But they provide them.
They provide them.
Okay. And then I assume that the further investigation, if the list of handles that's provided, or identities, I guess, online that's provided, we check to make sure that that's a comprehensive list.
Yes,
And a failure to disclose some of that would be a consideration, a negative consideration.
severely negative.
Right, I would hope so.
Yeah, that's exclusionary.
So I have one other question. Do you also ask, or is it something that's considered First Amendment, if somebody has a extremism, for lack of a better word, tattoo or whatever that may link them to an organization that may not be conducive to the department?
I believe that is in there. We certainly have a policy with visible tattoos or tattoos that are inappropriate.
Any other questions on this?
Bonnie, I have a more general one, but it can wait.
Well, it's about quarter of, so since we need to be done by, in about 10 minutes, I was gonna sort of turn the discussion, if that's okay with everybody, to what we want to cover, as a committee, and in particular, at the next meeting, and obviously set a date and time for the next meeting.
That sort of goes with my question. The current report has no standing, is that, and the recommendations are just sort of out there as guidance, but it has no legal standing. It has no official part of the city.
Well, it's been, the report was accepted by council, which doesn't mean that, that they've agreed, that the council has said, okay, and we're going to do everything in report. One thing that we talked about, if memory serves me correctly, one thing that we talked about when the report went up, and Rob, please correct me if I'm wrong about this, was instead of sending a whole list of recommendations, was to send more targeted recommendations. And so I think my general sense is that we have kind of three missions here. The first is to take a look at what we've done and see where it needs to be updated. And that's kind of a little bit of what we've been talking about, in terms of the lifeguards, for example, and where that's going. I think that the second thing is to figure out what else we want to do. And then the third thing, I think it would be probably an easier task, instead of coming up with a 16, 17 page single spaced report, to send things up on a rolling basis.
As we do them, or as.
That's one thing that I have thought about, as to whether that will ensure that we don't have, our recommendations don't get out of date. And, this is a fairly dynamic area right now. So, and appropriately so. So, so that was sort of my thought process going forward, but I'm just one member of the committee. What do other people think?
Well, I hate to see the work that we did on those 12 or whatever it is recommendations just go down the tube.
Oh, I agree.
I think some recognition needs to be made. If they need to be updated, fine, but they go to the council, or we recommend that they be dropped. But that ought to be a place to start.
I agree.
Yeah, we can't just throw them away. We put a lot of energy into these.
I completely agree. So that's what I'm saying, is to look at what we've done before and send it for example, we probably need to modify numbers 1 and 2. And probably number 4, because I think there's been some work done on that. So, and number 12, I think, was to continue the group. So my suggestion would be, how about if at our next meeting, we focus on those recommendations and ask Tom and Anne Marie in particular to be ready to say, to educate us on, all right, this has changed since the report was submitted in September. We revamp them and we send that, those forward in a streamlined thing, because council's already seen the report, so hopefully it'll go more quickly.
Okay, okay. Well, yes, if they've already seen the report, we don't want to be redundant.
Right.
So,
Does that sound like our first order of business?
I can go with that.
I mean, I do look at these, and I think that on most of them, there's some degree of update that we can provide, like speed enforcement. The chief's had a pretty, when our COVID numbers aren't through the roof, he's had a very robust and, I would say, customer friendly speed enforcement approach.
Sometimes this is right in front of my house, so which I don't think is a coincidence, Chief. Since
We're checking for you. Fine.
Well, they checked me out coming past your house. Tell you that much.
Oh, that's right.
Could I make a recommendation? I think you have to wait until the council has approved them, but perhaps one of the things is just thinking of the 1, 2, 3 steps for each one of them that are the next things to do to achieve those. And that is going to be the city and the police working together, but we can also, if encouragement is needed from the commission, from the committee, or work with the council. But I think there needs to be an interchange of some kind of action plan that says, this is what we're going to do about the lifeguards. It sounds like, frankly, that one's pretty well done, but what the kinds of things that you've done on HR.
This updated period. The latest update. I mean, what you're saying is just bring it up to snuff.
Right. And I don't think that's going to take more than a meeting.
Okay.
Maybe 2. But even if we get through 3 of them or 4 of them, we vote on them and send them up.
Exactly.
And then we take the next group. And then we get into, seems to me, whatever areas the committee wants to further explore. That'd be my suggestion.
Okay.
That sounds fine.
I'm good with that.
Do you need a motion?
No, I don't think we need a motion. I think we're okay. I think we can just do that by
Okay.
consensus. But what we do need is the next meeting.
Okay.
Trina, as the newest member of the council, are there any dates or times that are sort of blackout from your perspective that you're never available on Tuesdays at 6 or whatever it may be?
Well, since COVID, I'm pretty much available anytime 5 or later, but usually some nights were my church nights, but we haven't had that since March. So at this point, we're
yeah. Okay. Thank you. Well, let's see. So, I mean, is everybody?
Trina and I are both involved in the second Tuesday night.
I tell you, the third Thursday of the month, I'm always at the commission meeting for the African American.
Yeah, we can't conflict with any other city meetings anyway, so.
Okay.
Right. Well, here's a suggestion. How about, I'll just throw this one out as a possibility. How about February 9th? The council has sort of requested that all the committees meet at night to ensure that, that people who work during the day can watch if they want to, can participate. So how about like the 9th at 6 p.m.? How does that look to people?
Trina, you and I need to be through by 7.
Yeah, the Southern Delaware Alliance event.
Right.
Okay.
7?
How about the 10th?
I can't. I won't be here.
All right. Oh, of course you won't.
Right. I won't be here.
I knew that.
Mhm.
How about
If it's only an hour, Trina and I are okay, but if you're thinking of
How
more
about
than
if
an
we
hour,
started at 5:30?
that would be,
can you all
that
make
works for me.
That's a lot of meeting time on one night, but are you willing to do it?
We're talking about the
That works
9th
for
now?
everybody else.
I thought the 9th was an evening thing.
It's at 7
Yeah.
o'clock.
Right.
What I was saying was the 9th at 5:30 PM.
You can
Yeah,
even
that-
do 5. That
What'd you say, Trina?
even 5 if all
Okay.
was. Mhm.
Yeah, I'm trying to make it I'm trying to balance making it late enough that people will be, are done with work but early enough so that we have meaningful time to plow through this stuff for folks. Now, can you do that, Carolyn? I mean,
Well,
isn't that kind of that's a bad period of time for you?
it definitely is, but
I mean, I would have said
I
that-
don't know what to say. I'm kind of, guess it has everything to do with what happens.
Right. I mean, we can't do it on the 8th because we have council.
Right. I guess,
How long are you out of pocket, Carolyn?
let's go with the Tuesday at the time, and if for some reason it's a problem for me, then I just go without me, because I'm kind of not sure what's gonna happen.
Everything's gonna be fine. All right, well, why don't we go ahead and put it for the 9th
Okay,
at 5:30? Or if it's better, we could bump it to the next week. The 15th is a holiday, maybe the 16th. Would that be better for you, Carolyn?
yeah, I have a doctor appointment, but it's early, it's 1:30. So,
If we did the 16th at Tuesday, the 16th of February at 2 PM?
There's a Southern Delaware Alliance.
no, I
meeting.
can't do 2 PM. I have a 1:30 eye doctor.
No, I'm sorry. I meant 6 PM if I said.
Oh,
2.
that's
I
better.
apologize.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
There's a Southern Delaware Alliance annual business meeting at 7.
So how about 5:30?
That works.
February 6th, going once, February 16th at 5:30,
Good.
going once?
Go on.
Okay. All right, perfect. Thanks, everybody. This was a great discussion. We're gonna get through this, and thanks particularly to Anne Marie and Tom for their information.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you all.
thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Take care, everyone.
See you at Wayfaring.
Bye.
Bye-bye.